All right, working on a 2012 Nissan Pathfinder today. The AC is not working, and it's a pretty big deal here in St. Louis considering the heat's trying to kill us the last month or so. So, had 100, 110 degree. I think this week's supposed to be 105 with heat indices. So it's not good when the AC doesn't work. So we'll go ahead and check it out, see what's going on with it, and go from there. I think he suspected that the compressor wasn't working on it. I'm not sure. I haven't really looked at it yet, but we'll look at it together and see what we find. Alright, so I did start it up and turn the AC on. I didn't hear the compressor kick on. It did idle up, but the engine did, but I didn't hear the compressor kick on. So I went ahead and put the gauges on it and see if we're low on 134. And you can see here we're at about 100 on both sides, which is pretty average or normal for it, and I don't believe it's a low charge situation. Otherwise we would have much lower tip. Usually static, just sitting here, if it's been sitting a little bit, you'll be between like 90 and 105, somewhere in there on both sides, and they should be relatively even on both sides, and this is pretty close. The low side's a little bit higher than the high side, but not by much. So anyway, I think the next thing we're going to do is just see if the clutch is kicking on the AC, and go from there. Now, if the clutch isn't kicking on, which I suspect it's not, we'll test the wiring down there and make sure that the compressor is getting the signal to turn on or not. And if we have to, we'll hook a scan tool up and see if it's being commanded on. But first, we'll just do a simple. I'll just do a simple test light test on it and see, make sure it's at least getting power down to it. So I'll do that next, and then I'll let you know what's going on. Alright, so I have it running and I have the AC turned on. I'm actually grounded out to one of his engine grounds here, and I got the AC on, and you can see there my test light's on. That's a one-wire clutch assembly down there, so it has a ground on the actual case assembly somewhere down there, and then it has a power wire going to it. So what that tells me right there with that light being on is we have a good circuit all the way down to there, and we just have a clutch issue here with the compressor. So I'm going to evacuate the system, and then we'll start taking it apart. So anyway, you definitely want to check that. You don't want to assume that your clutch is working well or whatever. And I can also see, well, I won't be able to get you down there, but you can also see the clutch isn't turning with it on and the car running. The clutch itself is just stationary. The pulley's turning, but not the clutch. So if the clutch was working right, that would be engaged and pumping through the system, but it's not. So anyway, that tells me a lot right there. It tells me we have power all the way down there, and it's just a clutch issue. So we're going to go ahead and change the whole compressor. We'll put a new one on. Do not get a rebuilt one. The rebuilt ones are total junk. And a lot of times they don't even rebuild them with new parts and stuff. So, or they'll fix whatever's wrong with it and not change all the parts. So I always put new on. I started doing that this year just because of the issues we were having. And I did a little research on new versus rebuild, and new is the way to go. So we'll get a new compressor order for this, and we'll start taking this one apart. Alright, so we're going to go ahead and recover the system here. Don't be a Hoosier and just let it out into the environment. If you don't have one of these machines to recover it, go ahead and just drive it by some independent shop somewhere, and they'll probably do it for almost nothing or real cheap. It only takes a few minutes, and then you're not being a Hoosier. So anyway, and these lines are under pressure. You can see just at a static situation, there's 100 pounds of pressure on them. So you don't want to just take those lines loose without recovering the system or airing it down. So anyway, we're going to go ahead and recover this system. Like I said, it only takes a few minutes. That'll vacuum out or suck out all the Freon out of the system, and then it'll be safe to take that compressor off. So I'm going to go ahead and start jacking up this driver's side. I think we can get to the compressor from the wheel well on the driver's side. So we'll go ahead and start, get that ready, and then we'll go in there and take a look and see what we need to do to get this compressor off. And I did order a new one, and what's funny about that is at O'Reilly's, the new compressor is actually cheaper, like $10 or $15 cheaper than a rebuilt one. So always go new. When you do this, you don't want to do this over again. You don't want a rebuilt compressor to come apart on you and contaminate your whole system. So it's another reason to get a new one. So just get a new one, spend the extra money if you have to. On this case, for whatever reason, it was a little cheaper, so that works out even better for us. Alright, so here's the current situation. Got the front wheel off. I got the inner fender well out. This is the inner fender well here. And what you're going to do is take out, it's got Phillips screws all the way around it. You take all those out, there's 8 of them. There is a few underneath in the front. And then this back here has one right there where this hole is, right under the front fender. And then there's some in the front here underneath you have to get to, just 2 of them. And then there's a few regular plastic retaining clips. Just take a screwdriver and pop those out. And this thing should come out pretty easily. And it's going to give you access to the compressor here, which is right in there. And man, it is tight. So I don't know how much I'm going to be able to show you. I think I'm just going to be able to kind of talk you through it. So right now I'm going to go ahead, and first thing I'll probably just do is take out my probe here. And then I'm going to go ahead and take the belt off, the drive belt off, and then we'll take the lines off. I think there's 3 bolts holding the compressor on, and like I said, it's right there. You can kind of get your head in there and see the line. There's one 10mm, and I think there's another one right there. So that's where we're dealing with. It's pretty tight, but I've seen worse. As far as getting it out of there, I don't know. I actually have not done one of these Pathfinders, this newer one like this, so we'll see how it comes out of there. So anyway, I'm going to go ahead and take the drive belt off next, and then we'll come back down and start disconnecting the power to it and the 2 lines. Alright, I went ahead and moved this air intake hose out of the way just to make it easier to get to the belts. All it is 2 8mm clamps. You got one here, one right there, and then you have one going down to the PCV. And then you have 2 10mm bolts. Take off this engine cover, 210. So you got 4 10mm bolts all together. Pops right out in a few seconds. And we're going to get down here to this tensioner. Tensioner is right here, and just use a 3/8 ratchet or tensioner tool, whatever you have. Put it in there and then release the belt. Alright, you can see I got a tensioner tool in here that's going down to the tensioner. And you just push the to the passenger side, and that'll release the belt, grab the belt. So now that that's off, we'll go back underneath there. I'm going to go ahead and unplug the clutch, which is just that one connector we probed earlier to see if it was getting power. And then we got 2 looks like 2 10mm lines need to come off, and then we can start taking the actual compressor off. Alright, so we're going into the wheel well here, and if you look straight down where my finger's at right here, that's one of the bolts right there, and there's that one right underneath it right here. Now that one, you got to use a deep well and a regular ratchet. And on this one here, I just have a series of long, I got a small 1/4-inch ratchet. I just got a series of long extensions to get into it. But you can get into it from the wheel well here. So I'm just trying to show you. I'm not going to be able to show you how I'm taking them off, but it's pretty self-explanatory once you realize what you're going for. And you can see what you're doing. So you have to go in through the wheel well here. Long extension for the top one, and just take all the extensions off and kind of reach in there for the bottom one. And they're 12mm. I said earlier they're 10mm. They're actually 12mm. Alright, once you get the lines out, you're going to go for 3 bolts, hold the compressor on. There's one right here. Right there. I don't know if you can see that. And then you have 2 in the front here. You got one up top and one down low right there. And I actually got all those from the top. I just used a long ratchet with the short stubby and a deep well 12mm. And they are pretty tight, so you're going to need some leverage on it. And it just was easier for me to get up on the top and break them loose. And now that they're loose, I'm going to go ahead and loosen them up with a smaller ratchet, and it should be easier to get in there. So that's, and I don't know if I remember if I told you took off the connector, but I did take off the electric connector already. You just push in on the tab and pull it out. And anyway, so got those 3 bolts, and then I guess somehow this compressor comes out of here. Like I said, I've never taken one out of here, so we'll see. I don't think it's going to come out the bottom for sure. It's got to come out the top somehow, so we'll finagle it and see what we can do with it. and I'll let you know how that goes. So right now I'm just going to take out the rest of those bolts. It's 3 bolts, and then we'll pick it back up. Alright, so I got it figured out. We took the air box off. Got the lid that comes off these 2 clips. You have a 10 millimeter right here and a 10 millimeter inside. And then you have a rubber grommet on the other side right there. Just pull that straight up. And then this is what we got going on with the compressor. It's coming out. You got to remove this air box, and then it should just pull straight out from here. It's not super easy to get out. Well, I can't hold the camera and pull out at the same time. It keeps slipping, but I'll show you in a second. Alright, so here's the hole that it came out of. You can see down there some green stuff. That's not antifreeze. That's actually a leak detector. Someone filled this thing up with a bunch of leak detector at one point. But this is how it comes out, straight through the top. Compressor's here. So I'm actually still waiting for the new one. So I'm going to wait for the new one and see what the instructions are on the oil. And then go from there on it. So anyway, it does come out the top. Just remove the air lid and the air box. And it doesn't come out super easy. You got to kind of finagle it to where you need it. And then it slides out. But once you get it in the right position, it kind of comes out pretty easy. So anyway, that's how it's done on these Pathfinders. So we'll get the new one in and take a look at that and start putting this thing back together. Alright, so here's the new compressor. I'm just kind of going over it a little bit. It's not charged with oil, or it doesn't say so in the instruction. It says use a proper amount of oil. So what I did is I just flipped this one over, and it took about an ounce. It had about an ounce of oil in it. So that's what I'm going to put back into this. You can either inject it now through the hole and then turn the clutch as you do that, or you can do it. I have an actual thing I hooked to my gauges where I can charge it, so it's up to you. I'll use my gauges just because it's easier for the compressor to take it slowly than it is all at once and stick it in there. Anyway, you want to make sure that whatever you took out of here you put back in here, because this one is not charged with oil according to instructions. So and this, we're a little bit, it's a little bit more than an ounce out of there, so that's what we'll stick back into this one. So I'm going to go ahead and I checked everything else. The connector looks the same, everything looks good on it, so we should be good to start putting this back in there and putting it back in the vehicle. Alright, before I even put the compressor down in there, I like to put my seals in a little bit of PAG oil. You can see little seals down in there. It just helps them seal a little bit better and seat better. And we're going to go ahead and change the seals. They should come with your new compressor. Just take a pick like this and get up underneath the seal without stabbing yourself. Now this is the smaller line here, so we'll get the smaller seal out of the PAG oil. And always change those seals, because you never know. You know, this car's got over 100,000 on it. It's 9 years old, so seals can go bad. And this thing had a bunch of dye in it for leak detection, so it must have been losing a little bit of coolant or a little bit of freon here and there. So it's possible with these seals. So the other one's down there. I'm going to pull that one off, do the same thing, and then we'll slide this compressor in. But don't forget to change your seals. Alright, so I got the new compressor slid down kind of where it's supposed to be. I'm just going to go in from the side and try to line it up, use both my arms. Probably won't be able to show you that, but you get the general idea. It's probably going to be a little bit of a pain to get it lined up, just because there's not a whole lot of access, but I don't suspect it to be that bad. Once you get down in there, probably just go from the side and line it up. I'll let you know what I did, end up doing, or what the easiest way is, but that's my plan for now. Alright, so we're running the wheel well again. I'm just going to show you how I did it. I just kind of stuck my left arm in here and kind of held the compressor where I needed to, and then put my right arm up over here and started the bolts. And you just use your left arm to kind of manipulate the compressor until the bolts start. Once you get them all 3 started, you can let it go and just go ahead and bolt it back up. So I bolted it back up. I got both the lines back in, and I got the plug connected back in. So what I do now, before I put the belt on and the air box and the wheel well and all that stuff, is I'm going to hook the vacuum pump up to it. That way it's doing that while I'm working on the rest of it, so I can save myself a little bit of time, or wait time anyway. And what you want to do is hook the vacuum pump up for about 20 to 40 minutes. I usually like to run about 30 minutes and make sure all the moisture and air is out of the system. And then do not skip this step. If you don't have a vacuum pump, go buy one or go rent one. Most auto parts stores will rent it to you. And anyway, so we'll go hook it up real quick. I'll show you that, and then while that thing's running, we will put the rest of this together. Alright, so I got the vacuum pump hooked up. What you're going to do is hook a yellow line to your pump. Make sure both your high and your low side are open. And then you're just going to turn your pump on and let it run about, I would say 30 minutes, 20 to 40 minutes, 30 to be safe. And what you're looking for is both your valves, your gauges. Pull them off here. This should go down. They both should be in negative vacuum. You should be close to negative one here as possible. So you want to be in negative vacuum. So what we're going to do now is just let this run for a while. And then once it reaches that point, well, once it reaches the time limit, 30 minutes or so, we'll shut it off, and then we'll close the valves, shut it off, and then see if there's any kind of small leak. You can pick up small leaks sometimes by shutting it off and watching the gauge after you vacuum it down. You won't pick up some leaks because it's not under pressure. So if you got to figure when this thing's running, it's got 150, 200 on the high side and 30 or 40 pounds on the low side. So you won't pick up every single leak that way, but it's a good indicator if you got a big leak or something going on. After you shut this off, wait about 10 or 15, 20 minutes and see if that low side gauge moves at all, or high side. And if it moves back to zero or even quite a bit, then you have a leak, and you're going to have to either fill the system with air or find the leak some other way, or which I usually fill it with air. I'm not going to go over that today. We're not going to have any leaks in this. It didn't come in with a leak, and we put new seals in it, so I'm pretty confident we won't have any leaks in this. But if you're not sure about the vehicle, or if it came in with a leak and you fixed it, that's one way to tell if you have a leak. So anyway, I'm going to let this run. I'm going to go ahead and put everything back together, put the belt back on and the air box and all that. I'm not going to show all that. If you took it off, you know how to put it back together. It's all super easy anyway. It's kind of pointless to show all that. So I'm going to put the wheel well and the wheel back on, the belt and the air box and stuff. And by then, we'll probably have 10 or 15 minutes of more vac time, and then anyway, I'll pick it back up once I'm done with all that. Alright, I went ahead and vacuumed it down. You can see here, it's been off now for about 20 minutes or so, the vacuum pump, and we're still at -1 or all the way pegged out. So we're good there. There's probably no leaks in it. This is what I use to add the oil. You may not have this on your kit. I just put oil in here, whatever I need, and then I'm able to inject it with the Freon. If you're lucky, your car will have a tag under the hood, like this one right here on this car. Now this car does not have rear AC, so it's 1.54 pounds is what it takes. So I got the scale on. I actually got a brand new 30-pound jug hooked up. So it's almost, I've only used it I think once. So we're right at, well, it was at 34 pounds when I moved it. I'll let it settle here a second. I've been moving the lines around, that'll affect it. So if it settles back out at 34, I got to put 1.4 in it. That means we want to suck it down to 32.46. So I'm going to go ahead and start adding Freon to it, and we'll make sure the clutch comes on and all that, and then go from there. One thing I will add, if you don't have a tag on your car, some cars don't have them or they lose them or whatever, look it up and see. You want to get a good baseline or an idea of what it takes. You should be able to find it online if you can't find it under the car somewhere. Normally it's by an AC component. This one's under the hood right there. Just look around. Usually you can find the tags, and it'll let you know, at least get you close to the ballpark of where you need to be to add Freon into it. So anyway, I got the Freon scale, so I'm just going to use that and go from there. But we'll start adding now, and like I said, I'll put the oil in with this. And be careful with those compressors that are pre-oiled. They got a bunch of oil in them. I don't know how they're doing that. You're only really supposed to put in what you take out. So if they're putting in a whole bunch of ounces, you're going to have your system overfilled. You're going to run into problems down the road. So I always like to just see how much I took out and then put that back in. So anyway, that's how I do it. Anyway, I'm going to go ahead and start filling this up, and then we'll see what happens. Alright, so it might be a little bit loud. I got it running. The fans are on. I went ahead and put in what it was supposed to have in it. You can see here on the low side we're about 35, and on the high side we're about a little over 200, which is probably about right. It's really hot today in St. Louis. Like I said, about 105 with the indices, so you figure about 100 plus whatever the temperature is outside. So we're real close on that. So I don't think I'm going to put any more in it. I put the 1.5 in it that I was supposed to get. So we'll go take it for a ride, make sure it's cool, but it felt cool when I tested it, so we should be good to go. We'll send this one down the road. Take one quick ride with it real quick, and then we'll end this out. Alright, so we're on the highway. Got on, took about 5 minutes to get here, and you can see we're just a tad above 40, probably 41, 42 degrees, somewhere in there, which is pretty good considering the heat we're having today. So anyway, that's about it for a Pathfinder air compressor. Don't skip the vacuum step, and don't be a Hoosier and dump all the R134 into the environment. Take it by somewhere and have them vac it down. And anyway, and definitely don't skip the vacuuming step. You want to pump that system down and make sure all the air and moisture is out before you charge it back up, or it's just not going to cool efficiently or right. So that's about it. We're going to send this one back to the shop and go on to the next one. Thanks for watching. As always, God bless.